very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to this Sunday's edition of Primetime News coming to you live from our news studios in Colombo. I'm Mahanayaka. Let's start off with a look at the stories making headlines this evening.
Many opposition parties to support early presidential polls. Proposal to remove chairman of the PUCSL to be considered in Parliament on the 24th. Government MPs notified that attending parliamentary sessions on the 24th is mandatory. Let me witness the debate in Parliament. Janaka Ratnayaka makes a request. Vasanta no more, the convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation. Madhushan Chandrajit takes up the post. Ramya, a diamond in the rough, bags the crown at The Voice Sri Lanka Season 2.
And now the stories in detail. The cremation of the Mahanayaka terror of the Sri Lanka Amarapura sect Agamaha Pandita, Most Venerable Todampahala Chandrasuri Thera, was held this afternoon at the Independence Square in Colombo with full state honours.
The Mahanayaka Thero of the Sri Lanka Amarapura sect, Agamaha Pandita, Most Venerable Dodampahala Chandrasiri Thero, was admitted to the Sri Jayawardhanapura Hospital on the 16th of this month. He was 84 years old at the time of his demise. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, leader of the Jatika Janabalawegaya Anura Kumara Disanayaka, politicians and officials were among those who paid their final respects to the remains of the Venerable Mahanayaka Thero at the Gautami Tapowane Viharasthana in Rajagiriya yesterday. The Mahasangha headed by the Mahanayaka Theros, politicians and many others attended the cremations of the remains of the Mahanayaka Thero of the Sri Lanka Amarapura sect, Agamaha Pandita, Most Venerable Dodampahala Chandrasiri Thero today. The Venerable Thero's remains were brought to the Independence Square from the Gautami Tapowana Viharasthana in Rajagiriya. His remains were accepted by members of the Tri-Forces. The cremations of the remains took place after religious rites were observed. Mahanayaka Thero of the Sri Lanka Amarapura sect, Agamaha Pandita, Most Venerable Dodampahala Chandrasiri Thero, may you obtain the supreme bliss of Nibbana.
The Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka is a public body that has been the focus of much debate during the past few months. In 48 hours, Parliament will consider a proposal to remove the chairman of the PUCSL from his post. What exactly is happening? Can the government remove the chairman of the PUCSL in this manner?
The Public Utilities Commission on several occasions in the past questioned the rationale behind the increase in electricity tariffs and several other issues in the supply of power. The Commission intervened to protect the interest of electricity consumers. The Commission rejected the proposal put forward by the Ceylon Electricity Board in a show of support to the plight of the general public. All of these resulted in the PUCSL getting into the bad books of the government. The office of the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission was surrounded by the police and sealed. A proposal to remove the chairman of the PUCSL from office is to be taken up in Parliament against such a backdrop. Meanwhile, government MPs have been sent a notice informing them that it is mandatory for them to attend parliamentary sessions on the 24th of this month. The notice was issued by the Office of the Chief Government Whip, mandating the attendance of government MPs for parliamentary sessions on the 24th. Such a notice is usually issued when the government needs a majority in Parliament to pass appropriation bills. The notice means that the attendance of all government MPs on the said date is mandatory. Meanwhile, the organizer of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Basil Rajapaksa, who was overseas, has returned to the island. The proposal to remove the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka is also due to be tabled in Parliament on the 24th of May. The proposal, if passed by a simple majority of 113 votes, will result in the removal of the chairman of the PUCSL from office. What is the stance of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna regarding the chairman of the PUCSL? General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Attorney Sagara Kariyawasam, said that they do not approve of the chairman's conduct. He said that therefore the SLPP will fully support the proposal to remove Janaka Ratnayaka from the post of chairman of the PUCSL. Against a backdrop where government MPs have been notified that their attendance at the parliamentary sessions on the 24th is mandatory, the Dinamina newspaper reported that 20 state ministers of the government are frustrated. The report states that although some ministers have been put in charge of several ministries and have 10 to 15 institutions under their belt, these state ministers have only been given 1 or 2 institutions to oversee. The report states that several ministers had visited the office of the SLPP after accepting ministerial portfolios only once or twice, but had not visited the SLPP office thereafter. The report adds that many of these ministers have distanced themselves from political activities of the SLPP. What is the stance of the Samagi Janabalawegaya?
Commission Sabatica ආණ්ඩුවේ අල්ලේ නැටවෙන්නේ නැත්තම්
Unless the Commission are dancing to the tune of the government elections cannot be held, he opposed the increase in electricity tariffs, and this happened. The same will happen to all of the other independent commissions. This is a very bad precedent. They are trying to show that this is what will happen if you do not act according to the will of the government. Therefore, I would like to state that we will be voting against the proposal to remove the chairman of the PUCSL from his post. We would like to ask the members of the government. He was appointed during the tenure of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and he spoke for the people. So how can you vote against him without any shame and go back to your village? We would like to ask you as to if you are removing the chairman that you yourselves appointed because he stood against the increase in electricity tariffs.
What is the stance of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party?
ලංකාවේ අහිංසක දුප්පත් මිනිස්සුන්ගේ
A single arbitrary decision of this minister increased the electricity bill of the poorest in the country by 250%. The chairman of the PUCSL who worked to stop this is now being chased away. This is similar to chasing away Shirani Bandaranayake from the Supreme Court. We are against this. We believe that we should take all steps necessary against this.
ඒට ගන්න පුළුවන් උපරිම ක්‍රියාමාර්ග අපි ගත යුතුයි කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා.
What is the stance of the Jatika Janabalawegaya?
ඇත්තට මේ පුද්ගලයා ආරක්ෂා කිරීම නෙමෙයි. හැබැයි
This is not something to protect the individual, but he was against the increase in electricity tariffs. The government wants to control the newly appointed members to the commission. They couldn't remove the chairman. The chairman was a barrier to increase electricity tariffs as per the proposal of the IMF. Now they are trying to remove him from his position. This cannot be accepted. We will work towards defeating this motion in parliament.
පුව දුරෙන් ඉවත් කරන්න තමයි මේ උත්සාහ කරන්නේ. ඒක අපි කිසිසේත්ම අනුමත කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි සභාපතිවරයා ඉවත් කරන්න ආණ්ඩුවේ ගෙන යෝජනාව පරාජය කිරීම සඳහා පෙනී සිටිනවා.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, has requested the Secretary General of Parliament to allow him and his 2 children to witness the debate on the proposal to remove him from office in Parliament.
Meanwhile, a protest was held in Ratnapura against attempts made to remove the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission, Janaka Ratnayaka, and burdening consumers by imposing an unfair tax on the electricity bills.
We want to ask Minister Kanchana and Anil Rajapaksa, what wrong did Janaka Ratnayaka commit? Is it because he stood for the people? The 14th clause of the Electricity Act clearly mentions taking action with regards to protecting the general public. That is why Minister Kanchana and President Ranil is trying to remove him, which means this government is not a people-centric government. It clearly shows.
Issuing a statement, Verity Research has raised concerns with President Ranil Wickremesinghe proposing to continue to function with 30 ministries when a study into the optimum number of ministries that should be maintained in Sri Lanka has proposed just 15 ministries. According to the statement, President Wickremesinghe's assertion made on the 17th of May to maintain the current number of ministries of 30 aligns with the existing constitutional limit but is double the number of ministries recommended by Verity Research in a white paper setting out the design of a rational structure for government. In their white paper titled, quote, A Rational Method for Cabinet Formation in Sri Lanka, unquote, Verity Research outlined the benefits of reducing the number of ministries and addressing fragmentation and misalignment issues. Verity Research's mapping of government functions, laws and institutions supports their proposed structure of 15 ministries. The ministries include finance and planning, justice, defence, education and research, health, agriculture, labour, public utilities, ports, shipping and civil aviation, economic affairs, home affairs and community development, foreign affairs, family and community development, society and culture, and environment.
Venerable Dr. Pallegama Hemaratana Thera said he sees a twisted nature in current politics and an election should be held immediately according to the will of the people. He expressed these views during a meeting with parliamentarian G.L. Piris representing the Freedom People's Congress.
දේශපාලන පක්ෂත් ඡන්දයක් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. මිනිස්සු අතර යම් මේ තියෙන තත්ත්වයේ පිළිබඳව කලකිරීමක් තියෙනවා. එතකොට ඔය දෙකටම තියෙන පොදු පිළිතුර තමයි ජනතාභිලාෂයට ඉඩක් ලැබෙන එක. අපේ රටේ තියෙන ලොකුම ප්‍රශ්නය තමයි නැතිවරණ තියෙන නැහැ. පළාත් සභා නැතිවරණේ අවුරුදු 4මාරක් තියෙනවා. විශේෂයෙන් දේශපාලන ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ අපි දකින්නේ විකෘති ස්වභාවය. ඒක සඳහා ජනතාභිලාෂයට ඉඩකඩක් දෙන එක. ඒකේ වරදක් දකින්න බෑ.
Professor G.L. Piris expressed the following views thereafter.
Give the people the opportunity to express their mandate through an election. For that fundamental reason, if the government is suggesting that we must go for an election a year before, we will support it. We strongly oppose the government's actions to postpone the elections they don't want and instead hold elections that they want to hold and claim not to have funds to hold elections. But if they present a constitutional amendment to Parliament to hold the presidential election an year earlier, we will support it for the people of this country.
Meanwhile, views were expressed on the presidential election and the government's use of politics at the conference of retired armed forces members of the Jatika Janabala Vegaya.
There is no governance, there is no Pradesh Sabha or provincial council. There are conflicts in parliament. There is a president without the people's mandate. They are scared of elections. There is a conflict there. They are reluctant to hold the elections because they don't have the power of the people. Now there are discussions going on about changing the constitution and Ranil Wickremesinghe will hold the presidential election in November. What lies? He thinks that holding the presidential election would be more beneficial to him than a local government election. When I say beneficial, I don't mean that he is going to win it. Without the Pradesh Sabha, he will get some votes there. But according to the election calendar, the country should hold a presidential election in 15 months. But before that, another election will have to be held and we have to prepare for that. But the rulers are attempting to violate the constitution and to hold on to power without the mandate of the people. What is the most destructive path that we have so much experience in? Racism and religious extremism. When the politicians cannot ensure that they will remain in power, they turn towards racism. They stole the democratic rights of the people. They created the Black July in 83. Hettividya was set ablaze. All of us, both from the north or the south, are victims of this devastation. What is this devastation? It is political devastation. They spread racism to hold on to power. They spread religious extremism to hold on to power. We have shed enough blood during the 30-year-long war. In a country that has these experiences, the Easter Sunday attack took place. A majority of the general public believes that the Easter attacks were a political attack to gain power. Will such people ever build the country? Now what is happening again? Racist and religious extremist groups are now starting to build themselves up again. You would have heard about this statement made by a pastor. These are not empty statements at a time like this. This pastor has been preaching for a long time. But why did he suddenly make the statement of this nature? See how the society is in turmoil after this statement. Who would have thought that Ranil Wickremesinghe would take the main seat at the War Heroes commemoration? Now they are more devout to Buddhism. I saw them bring in new acts and making statements. Why are they doing these things? They are once again entering the old game. We need to look at these incidents and decide whether the government has a hand in some of these incidents in the north as well to create these conflicts.
News first with the people.
Well, time for a short commercial break. Stay with News First. We will be right back.
ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් කොයිද තියෙන්නේ? සුපර්මාකට් එකෙන් වගේ තෝරලා බේරලා ගැලපෙන මේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එක අරගන්න නම් මේ තියෙන ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සුපර්මාකට් එක. ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් එක ගන්නවා නම් ඉන්ෂුරමි එක්ක කතා කරන්න. ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ ඉන්ෂුරන්ස් සුපර්මාකට් එක insurme.lk.
Welcome back. You are with News First. A 19-year-old school student has sustained injuries in a police shooting in Aberdeen, Gampula. Police said a pet dog was also killed during the shooting.
Police officers took measures to inspect the house based on a tip-off that illegal liquor was being brewed at the premises. The pet dog at the house had attempted to bite the police officers at the time of the raid.
An
officer carrying a firearm had shot into the air thrice to control the situation when the suspect attempted to stab the police officers with a sharp weapon. The dog had come there at the time and pounced at the officers. The officers had opened fire at the dog and it died in the shooting. We suspect the bullet aimed at the dog had ricocheted off the ground and hit the suspect's 19-year-old child who was nearby. It is unclear if the bullet hit the child's leg.
හෝ යමක් විශ් වෙලා මෙම කකුලේ වැදුනද කියන එක තවම පැහැදිලි නැහැ.
They didn't let us take the child. The police officers held him in the room for around 45 minutes. We took him to the hospital in a three-wheeler after that.
This is what the police had to say.
ඉල්ලීමක් කරලා තියෙනවා ඔහු රැගෙන යන්න. නමුත් සැකකරු සහ නිවසියන් විසින් ඒ ස්ථානයේ
A request was made to take him, but the suspect and the residents of the house had gathered relatives and crowds at the scene and objected to it and informed that they will take him to the hospital. So the police officers didn't try to take him to the hospital. I reject claims that the police officers caused a delay.
ඇතිකල ප්‍රමාදයක් හෝ පොලිස් නිලධාරීන් විසින් එවැනි ප්‍රමාදයක් සිදු කර බව සම්පූර්ණ ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරනවා.
අර වාලේ හිල් එකක් තියෙන මේ තියෙන මේ සිවිලින් සීට් එකක් තියෙනවා.
Police spokesperson SSB Nihal Taldua said a case is ongoing before the Kandy High Court regarding the chief suspect over assaulting 3 police officers with sharp weapons in 2013. The school student who was injured in the shooting and the police officer who was bitten by the dog are receiving treatment at the Gampala hospital.
On to one of our headline-making stories. Madhushan Chandrajit of the Faculty of Allied Health Sciences of the University of Peradeniya has been appointed as the new convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation. The end of the tenure of the former convener and the appointment of the new convener was announced at a media briefing in Colombo today.
The new convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Madhushan Chandrajit, the former convener Vasanta Mudalige and several others joined the media briefing.
While introducing laws to suppress the people of the country, student activists and student leaders are also being suppressed within the university system. The Inter-University Students' Federation will continue to rally the people and intervene as university students for the common issues of the people.
විශ්වවිද්‍යාල ශිෂ්‍යයෝ විදියට අපි අඛණ්ඩ මැදිහත් කිරීම කරනවා කියන කාරණය බොහොම පැහැදිලිව අද දවසේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
What is the reason for you to step down and for him to be appointed suddenly?
ලංකාවේ දේශපාලනයේ තියෙන විදිය තමයි.
In Sri Lanka's political culture, the practice is for those appointed to power to hold the post for as long as possible until they die. What is that Ranil Wickremesinghe does not do for the post of UMP leader? What didn't he do to obtain the national list they got? We see how Mahinda Rajapaksa is working to hold his leadership post while he is sick and can barely walk. While there are political actions in Sri Lanka like this, the student movement is not like that. We don't fight to hold on to positions of power.
කරද්දි ශිෂ්‍යව්‍යාපාරය කියලා කියන්නේ එහෙම එකක් නෙමෙයි. පුටු බදාගෙන එහෙම නැත්නම් බලය වෙනුවෙන් එහෙම කරන එකක් නෙමෙයි.
There may be allegations that you are stepping down out of fear over recent incidents and you are facing charges under the PTA.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහට බය වෙලා කියලා.
Is it that I'm afraid of Ranil Wickremesinghe? We have showed whether or not we are afraid in the past. While I was imprisoned for 6 months under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, I could have made a deal with the government for my release. I did not do that. There is no reason to be afraid of someone like Ranil Wickremesinghe who does not have a public mandate.
කිසිම හේතුවක් නැහැ.
Minister of Public Security Tiran Alas has ordered the Inspector General of Police to ensure the safety of students within universities. The minister issued the order following discussions with a group of professors, including vice-chancellors of several universities and the heads of police.
A group of professors, including the Vice-Chancellors of the University of Colombo, University of Sri Jayawardenepura and University of Kelaniya joined the discussions. The Minister of Public Security Tiran Alas, Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security Viyani Gunathilaka, Inspector General of Police C.D. Vikramaratna and Deputy Inspector General of Police of the Western Province Deshabandhu Tennakon were also present for the discussion. Attention has been directed to ensuring the safety of students in universities and preventing theft and the use of narcotics in universities. The Ministry of Public Security said attention was also directed to provide security near the dormitories of the female students. Minister Tiran Alas instructed the relevant officials to take the necessary security measures.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the restructuring of local and foreign debt will be completed by August and the country will no longer be branded as a bankrupt nation come the month of September. He made this statement while speaking at the event to declare open the project to provide water to 169,000 people in Mahanayaka.
The project will provide water to residents from 135 Grama-Niladhari divisions in the Mahanayaka, Mavanella and Rambukkana divisional secretariats in the Kegol district. This water scheme was implemented under the financial allocation of 3,847 million rupees from the government of Sri Lanka and a loan of 18,650 million rupees from the government of Netherlands.
Moving on to news overseas, as the G7 leaders sent a strong message to Russia by inviting Volodymyr Zelensky to Hiroshima, another rival was also on their minds, China.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said China posed the greatest challenge of our age in regards to global security and prosperity, and that it was increasingly authoritarian at home and abroad.
The G7 also demonstrated unity of purpose on China. China poses the biggest challenge of our age to global security and prosperity. They are increasingly authoritarian at home and assertive abroad. And as the G7 have showed, the UK's response is completely aligned with our allies. This is all about de-risking, not decoupling. And with the G7, we are taking steps to prevent China from using economic coercion to interfere in the sovereign affairs of others.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has weighed in, although less confrontationally, saying that everybody wins if China raises its standards on human rights, the environment and working conditions. The G7 summit in the Japanese city of Hiroshima was electrified this weekend by the arrival of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who arrived on a French government plane to canvass for greater support against Russia's invasion. During the final day of the three-day G7 summit, US President Joe Biden told Zelensky the United States was doing all it could to strengthen Ukraine's defense against Russia. Other leaders of the G7, the United States, Japan, Germany, Britain, France, Italy and Canada echoed Biden's sentiments.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Bakhmut is completely destroyed, but has denied that Russia has won the bloody battle for the city.
Asked on Sunday whether his forces had control of the eastern Ukrainian city, Zelensky said,
"It's a pity, it's tragedy, but for today, Bakhmut is only in our hearts."
His office later clarified that he did not said that the city had fallen. The Wagner Russian paramilitary claimed to have captured the city on Saturday. In a video, its founder, posing with some of his fighters, said that his forces had control of the entire city. On Sunday, President Vladimir Putin said that Russia had won the battle for Bakhmut and that all troops who had excelled would get state awards.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for joining us. Good night.